Right, this video is called Attitude to the Westminster Cartel, Attitude also to Joe Blogs. Politicians, along with the national news media, are the problem, not the solution. It's a simple but important point because politicians and the national news media imply a kind of solution, the way they talk or whatever. But most people see politicians as the problem, not the solution, ironically. I see them as also propagandists that deliberately cause the problem of conflict in society, meaning conflict in social relationships. So, when you think of a problem, you think of a solution. And the solution is just to get rid of them. That's politicians and news media. Now, they also use propaganda for war, so the military also has to go in the end as well. You've also got the civil service that tends to, thinks it runs the country. I always find that bizarre. But if you focus on the politicians and the news media, and you got rid of them by stopping focusing on them, stopping giving them attention, stopping consuming the news media, stopping voting in elections, then the decentralisation would happen anywhere, and the civil service would just also go along, would also just be finished off just in the same way as the politicians are. Because if you're not giving centralisation the focus, then the decentralisation would happen automatically. It just would, because the focus isn't on them in voting in elections and so on, or consuming their stuff. So if you don't consume national news media, the local news media would still be there. Yeah, it's something like that. Which is okay. That's a good thing. Because local news media are not corrupted because they're not got enough power. It's like when you think of America. If you said to me, is their news media, national news media, is that corrupt? I'd say yes. Well, if you've got a local newspaper in some town I've never heard of in the US, it's just, I think that is just genuinely reporting the news. It's certainly in the UK, local news media never seems to have an agenda when I check it out. I live in the North East, so I could think of the Evening Gazette and the Northern Echo and the local news on TV. They don't seem to have a power and control agenda at all for me. Whereas, and also on the politician side, if you don't believe me that they're not there to solve problems, just ask most people. And on the news media, the opposite of the local news media, the very opposite, would be something like the Murdoch news media empire. For me, that has two functions. One, propaganda. Two, profit. And it has to deliver on both. It does for them. And that's it. That's the only two. I do not think I've missed anything off. They are not there to do good for people. It's just not. Now, onto am I ready to go to another point here as well? I'm having a look at my notes. Well, all we can do is ignore self-serving power. Because if we replaced it, then we become like them. Because we're human too. So you don't get given a bucket of gold and turn it down. No human superstructure or cartel or elite power has ever voluntarily given up power. So think about it, it's just unrealistic to say, oh well, put in my lot and we'll be fine. They're just corrupted as well. That doesn't excuse the presently corrupted, by the way. That's like saying a bank robber's let off because there's another bank robber. Yeah, we need to ignore centralised and monopolistic power. So what normally happens when people revolt is they get all violent, or at least protesty, and it just begets violence back at them from the state. It's obvious. I almost accept the state doing that. It's like they're not worth just defending themselves. I could have just rolled over. It's just pointless. I mean, well, I'm not going to bother with examples because it's just, you could pick anything. Right, on the labels. Labels limit and are divisive in everyday society, the Joe Blogs world. And a lot of that's come from the top for divide and rule. It's deliberate provocation, and it's across so innocently that you might not be able to tell. But without labels, they've got no narrative, and the superstructure collapses. So they want them labels. They might not make it obvious, but they do. Now I'm going to come back to labels in a minute. So it works by, actually, continuing the labels, it works by some of the public, not all, some of the public will never mention political labels ever in their life, but enough do to cause a bit of conflict, and that's because of about 150 issues of unrelenting propaganda, which has just got more and more and more unrelenting the more news media we've got, thanks to television and when you think of CNN, Fox, BBC, Sky, and then you get social media and that news media within that, and they're online, and just bombardment. So it's just got, it's not that, I admit the propaganda was there a century ago, definitely was, no doubt about it, I'm not indecisive about that, but it's even worse now. And that's also backfires on them a bit. It's the reason, you're getting, Greece, Catalonia, Brexit, governments going crashing out every other year, Trump, and so on. So, they're kind of, I think they've had a bad 7 years or so, but the answers to their propaganda, I think, are absolutely crap. Because it's just playing their game. So it just continues it. That's what I say, it's just a power trip back at them. They're power tripping, and that begets power tripping back at them, and it goes round and round in circles. And some of the Joe Blogs types are victims of that unrelenting century-plus long propaganda, brainwashed or are ill. To think you've got all these billion-dollar media news empires and are not trying to brainwash anyone. It sounds like a joke. Why aren't they? That's what I would say to that. Why don't they want people to think like they do? It does help them. We would, wouldn't we? Surely. Of course they are. It's because they are. Ask any foreign nation that isn't bothered about us. They're usually in Asia, they're like neutral. I'll see through us. Anyway, there's only people ultimately, once all these labels are gone. So these labels and not who I am or anyone else is. They're manufactured. And so like I said before, this would result in decentralisation. Now I want to really simplify this, so it's not a A-level even concept here. It doesn't have to be put complicatedly. You can put it really simply. Imagine manifestos come out, political parties these days, they want to suck up a bit, so they're going about mental health in a section of their manifesto. Now, I don't think that any progressive is even more bothered about mental health than masses than blooming Richard Nixon in 1970. Right? So imagine a 21-year-old woman now. She's got a best friend. That best friend would help her out more than any politician even could. So I don't even know how they could do better. And would get her through that phase of her life that's a crisis for her. If she's authentic. And she's more likely to be authentic than a blooming invisible or whatever it is, Westminster, however that is put across. Now that's decentralisation in a way. It is in a way, isn't it? It's decentralisation. It's as far as you can go almost to a closest friend. But it's more relevant. It's more relevant. It's more relevant to it, I think. And like I say, the best friend would be being authentic, so it's not actually just saying it. Now, that's putting it really simply and really personally. It's fair enough, I think. But now, in conclusion, I'd say three things. Ignore the state superstructure. If you don't like the term state superstructure, Westminster Cartel, politicians, news media. 2, don't use their labels. I mean, we are just people anyway, so that one is for more than one reason in my head. We are just people anyway. And 2, them labels are used to make you, are used for conflict, they're limiting, divisive, benefits them, not anyone else. And refuse everyday people the conflict. Some of those everyday people are understandably brainwashed. When you've got propaganda, I don't think it just fails, it succeeds. I think state superstructure has a pretty good, if not brilliant, maybe brilliant, science of this. I mean, they've been through so much, haven't they? The war and everything, World War II. Just bound to be quite good at it by now. I don't mean there's a room where it's and plan this science. It's just you can see it just as it is. Anyway, what I'm going to do from here next, when I next do a video, is think about this issue about the labels that I want to be gone. Like I said, one of the reasons is because we're not our labels, we're just people. But what I want to focus on it for isn't that reason, although that reason's true. I want to focus on it because propagandists are totally screwed without those labels. Then you can't divide us. So the two things I go on about labels are linked. I won't just think in terms of obvious labels like left, right, centre, Republican, Democrat, Tory, Labour. Because it's so important, this issue, to get the labels seen through correctly, because they can't speak with labels, they can't push a narrative, they can't push any propaganda, That's why.